It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
So, we've laid out this case that having with a big shovel comes big responsibility, big burden. So, I imagine a lot of folks out there are pretty scared right now, and they're thinking, "Oh man, I don't know if I want to make more money now because it's awful scary and there's some burden to that." How do I know that I'm not going to fall into this trap? What's something that I can do that maybe other folks don't do? And what I think is beautiful is this is the fourth point that we think high paid Americans miss. They don't follow the FOO. They don't follow the financial order of operations. They either skip around or they forget to check the early boxes, and they completely miss the whole point.
Yeah, and I think I want to set the ground rules here is that a lot of people, you're going to watch this show and be like, are these guys tone deaf? They're talking about people making $150,000, $200,000. What whack show am I watching here? And here's the reality. We recognize this show is designed for financial mutants. We're talking to the top 20% of the public. And look, Bo and I come from very humble beginnings, and I'm hoping some aspirational financial mutants are watching this stuff too. So you can watch, learn, and grow your own future wealth. But you need to know some of these basics because here's the part. If you have the financial order of operations and you're somebody, because look, I came out of college making $28,000 a year. And that $28,000 a year was eaten alive by my rent in downtown Atlanta. I had to, I bought, gas, car insurance on a under 25-year-old dude, because it's not like we're great risk profiles for insurance companies. It disappeared. So I know the struggle. So I don't want somebody watching this. And that's why the guidance I would give you, if you're in the 80% that has not reached financial mutant status, I know you got to focus on the behavioral stuff. Do that. There's resources out there for that. But you are probably starting to recognize every dollar is very powerful. Remember the 88 times over. So let's start maximizing those resources. How do I work through it? And that's what I love about the financial order of operations. It doesn't matter if you're aspirational or fully a financial mutant. This is going to tell you, just like mathematics, there is a process. There's an order to do a math problem to get to the right result and answer. It's the same thing with your money. So let's go through these. Number one, deductibles covered. This is keeping your financial life out of the ditch, making sure that just you having a medical emergency or something, that happens that blows up your financial life just because you have to use credit cards or something to get you through it. Having your insurance deductibles covered will help you. Employer match, free money. You want to know where most people build seven-figure wealth first? It's in their employer retirement plan. So don't skip out on the free money. High interest debt. We've covered debt is horrible, guys. If you're not scared while you're using it, you're doing it wrong. Number 4, emergency reserves, 3 to 6 months. Number 5, tax-free growth, Roth IRAs, HSAs. Number 6, max out that retirement plan. You're probably making more and more money as you make it through these things because this is not going to happen overnight. Number 7, hyperaccumulation. This is the 3-bucket system. You got to not only have tax-deferred money, your tax-free money, but you're probably going to have some taxable brokerage assets. Prepaid future expenses. This is when we're thinking about the kids with college and other things. Maybe that's where the rental house property comes in. And then number 9, and this is a great setup, this is where, and I know all you debt avengers are trying to get out of debt as fast as possible because you think that's what you're supposed to do. But I'm telling you, with interest rates at 2.5% and you're 30 years old and or 33 years old and you have 30 years till retirement, let that army of dollar bills, let them run, let them make you money, and we'll show you why there's definitely an opportunity cost if you're not letting your money work for you.
I see this as being the number one thing that high-income folks that are making good decisions get out of whack. They don't follow the FOO in the right order. One of the things that high income allows us to do is be more discretionary with what we do with our dollars. Well, the financial order of operations is an optimization method. It's a way to help your dollars stretch further and go longer than your peers. And one of the things high-income folks do is they like to jump straight to step 9. They like to jump straight to low-interest debt. And so we've done this illustration before, but I think it's worth repeating. let's take two savers, right? We're going to have both Paul and Melissa, and let's assume they're 33 years old. And at 33 years old, they want...
Now, where did we come up with 33? Did people think we made that up?
No, 33 is actually, in present-day America, the average age that someone buys their first home. So they are entering into their first home purchase at 33 years of age. They both are going to buy a $300,000 home. They are avid Money Guy listeners, so they're going to put 20% down, and they're only going to have a loan of about $240,000. Now, Paul, he's one of these high-income folks that says, you know what? I want to be debt-free as soon as possible. I've got some extra money, so I'm going to secure a 15-year mortgage. Melissa says, you know, I don't necessarily want to do that. I'm going to listen to the Money Guy show. I'm going to follow the foo, and I want to do a 30-year mortgage.
But also realize, Melissa, she's in the messy middle.
No.
I mean, she's probably, think about the typical American. You're married, you got some kids. I mean, life is, you got a lot of moving parts. So the 30-year mortgage also allows you to get the house, not overspend, but it definitely gives you a little more latitude than the 15-year mortgage will do.
So Paul, being a financial mutant, recognizes that one of the benefits of a 15-year mortgage is he gets a lower interest rate. So he's going to pay 2.5% interest. Melissa's mortgage on her 30 years is going to be 3.25. Paul's monthly payment, because it is a 15-year, is going to be pretty high. It's going to be $1,600 a month. Melissa's, because she's stretching over 30 years, is only going to be $1,044 a month. After 15 years, when Paul pays off his mortgage, he says, you know what? I'm not going to let that increase my lifestyle. I'm going to start investing that $1,600. So I'm going to get as much money working as soon as possible once my debt is gone. So I'm going to invest that. Melissa says, hey, I didn't do the 15-year, but rather than using that $550 difference, I'm going to start investing that. So I'm only going to pay $1,044 on my mortgage, and I'm going to invest the $556 so that both she and Paul have the exact same monthly outflow. They both have $1,600 a month flowing out.
Here's what I think is, just to let you guys know how conservative we are with this. A lot of people would look at this and they go, 2.5% mortgage on the 15-year. Man, that's great that Paul's attacking this because he's saving just so much interest.
Sure.
Everybody gets caught up in that interest that you're paying on the mortgage. We have this so conservative because I have a 30-year mortgage myself at 2.5%. So these numbers, the rates have even come down further. But we went ahead and built the premium into this. Melissa's paying 3.25% for the premium of having a 30-year mortgage versus the 2.5% on a 15-year. Surely all that interest cost is going to hurt her because that's what the premise is with a lot of people. Let's see how the rest of this plays out.
And then once Melissa pays off her home in 30 years, she's going to invest the full $1,600. So she's not actually going to be investing $1,600 a month until 15 years after Paul has started doing that. Well, what we see is that when they both start with a $240,000 mortgage and nothing in investments. But after 10 years, Paul will have paid his mortgage down to $90,000. He has nothing in investment assets, but he has $90,000 in mortgage.
He's almost debt-free.
Almost debt-free. Melissa has double the mortgage. She has a $184,000 mortgage.
Still a lot of equity in that house.
Still a lot of equity, but her investment account has grown to $105,000. Now, before we start this, right, because, Brian, I can already hear the comments. I don't know why you guys hate on us so much in here. You say, well, nobody would ever just pay all their mortgage and not build up any investments. We're comparing apples to apples here. We're talking about marginal dollars, talking about the next dollar. So this case study aligns. They both have the exact same outflow. We're not taking into account any other metrics. We're only comparing the exact same behavior from one person to the next.
Here's what I think is interesting. We shared the stat that the first home purchase in America is typically around 33 years of age. I think then we fast forwarded 10 years. It's amazing how life works out so I can do these experience shares. I have told you guys, and you've heard me talk about one of the biggest shapers of my life, why I knew I wanted to be self-employed, why I knew I wanted to have my own company, was I watched my father at the age of 43 actually lose his job. I mean, literally get it all ripped away, go from a good income to starting over. I'm talking about losing the company car, buying a $1,000 beater just to kind of, make it, doing timeshares as timeshare presentations as vacations. I mean, that is the most ridiculous thing, but this is how life was just different. And it's all because McKesson got out of the division that my dad worked in. So it was one of those things where I think if you could have the scariest thing happen to you, work for a company for 20 plus years, and then have it all go away, You're 43, which is already kind of getting, you pick on me for being older. I still feel like a kid. I still act like a kid, but I know that I'm getting to be in my late 40s. You better have a lot of stuff figured out by the time you're in your 40s, because you don't get another shot at it. You know, there's a lot of things. So this is kind of scary. So I ask yourself, think about my father, think about my family and how this shook me to the core, seeing all these life changes, seeing how we were doing life differently, and ask yourself, who would you rather be at 43 and unemployed? Paul with $210,000 of equity
and a $1,600 required monthly mortgage payment,
with zero money invested. Now, sure, he might have cash reserves, but remember, my dad is starting over from zero. That 3 to 6 months, it's going to be a little tight to make sure that 3 to 6 months of cash reserves covers the entire family. By the way, with a son that within 2 years will be a full-on 16-year-old, you know, and by the way, costs, y'all, you know, with activities fees and all the things that teenagers do, it doesn't get cheaper. It gets more expensive. And then you got college lingering in the background. I'm sure my father was like, whew,
what
how
am
are we going to get through this?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Melissa, she has a little less home equity. She's got $116,000 of equity. But look at that. She's got 6 figures of investments. Guys, there's a bright spot there. There's some optimism knowing you have access to 6 figures when something like this happens. And that's what I always talk about. I love prepaying debt. And we're going to talk about when in financial order of operations prepaying low debt makes sense. But what really troubles me is when you miss out on all that opportunity of having the 6 figures of assets and letting them grow and having access to it, because you're not really cutting risk on the debt prepayment until you're fully out of debt. We could have ran this on Paul all the way. He's still got $90,000 of debt.
That's right.
He's still in a scary situation.
Not only does Melissa in this circumstance have more flexibility, but the mathematics are on her side too. Because if you add it up, Melissa is technically ahead after 10 years by almost $11,000 in terms of total net worth. Yes, she has more debt, but she also has more assets. If you fast forward another 10 years, Melissa's ahead by $100,000. Now, Paul, completely debt-free, and he's begun to accumulate assets. He has about $117,000. Melissa still has a mortgage of about $100,000, but she could write a check to pay it off if she so chose.
Well, that's the power of compounding interest. You get to stack it. I mean, that's what's great is that even though, yes, it's great Paul was saving 2.5% interest, but all those dollars that are working and making money, they're building, they're compounding on top of each other every year. It gets to the point, Paul can't catch Melissa because her army of dollar bills, she could stroke a check to pay off the mortgage, but it sure is nice that they're actually working for her so she can work less with her back, her hands, her brains. It's all falling more on her assets growing for her.
And if you fast forward all the way to the end of this little experiment, age 65, when they both decide to retire, reach financial independence, both of them have paid for homes. Paul has done very well for himself. He has a $600,000 portfolio, but Melissa actually has a portfolio of almost $832,000. She's about $230,000 ahead of Paul with no additional cash outlay. The only thing that she did differently was she followed the financial order of operation. She let the optimization method work to her favor.
Here's what I think is interesting about this case is because we've talked about why rich families or families that have high incomes are still broke. And it's easy to focus on the negative stuff. We did it. We talked about debt. We talked about not doing right expectations or budgeting of things. But I feel like this is almost like a friendly fire event in that this is a good behavior. I would think, you know, somebody who is prepaying mortgage debt in their 30s, even early 40s, guys, that shows you have, if you're talking about the 3 components of wealth creation, you've got discipline.
You got the hard one down.
You got the discipline in the fact that you're living on less than you make and saving for the future. You have money. I mean, because that's what's creating it. You have income, plus you have the money that's coming from the discipline. You have time because you're still young, but you squandered the opportunity of letting the money, the discipline, and the time all actually mix together, turn them into dough so they can rise up and actually create something for you. This is what breaks my heart when that opportunity costs, because it is a friendly fire moment. You're taking a positive behavior and doing what should be good things, but somehow it's actually working against you because you never let your army of dollar bills get out of the house and actually do the work for you. So you probably ask yourself, well, guys, if this is the case, because I mean, we're in this low interest environment, should we ever prepay the debt? And and Bo, we have this debate because I
we
think
talk
right
about it
now you're a
often.
little bit younger. I'm a little older, a little wiser. I'm worried about the
just a little.
risk. I'm worried about not only making money, and creating wealth, but also keeping wealth.
Sure.
And I'm trying to minimize risk the older I've gotten. So we have some pretty cool rules. Remember, we have the financial order of operations. If you go to moneyguy.com/resources, this is actually free for you. Go download this. If you've heard me go through these 9 steps, check it out. But just giving you the rest of the equation on number 9 is that the thing is that I think when you get to be my age, you're going to crave simplicity. You're going to crave for risk to go away. That's when it's okay. Go ahead and get rid of that 2.5% mortgage debt, but do it. There's a time and there's a place for wealth creation. There's a time and a place for debt, getting rid of it so you can be truly unencumbered and financially independent. Just do it right. Respect the FOO, because this is what's going to create success for you.
Go out to the resource page, moneyguy.com/resources. Down this, we actually have a course where we dive into each of these 9 steps in greater depth. If you want to go check that out, you can go to learn.moneyguy.com and check that out, because we ultimately want this to be a tool for you that allows you to take your finances to the next level. One of the hardest things about creating wealth or going out and getting a job or fill in the blank of how you want to describe it is figuring out how to go out there and make money. And how do I make more money? And how do I get myself from my current income to what I perceive as high income? We think if you can alter these 4 things, why are high paid folks actually broke? It's because they have an inaccurate view of reality. They don't understand debt, or they allow debt to kill them by 1,000 paper cuts. They set the bar too low, or they don't follow the FOO. If you can recognize this, if you can understand this and put yourself on the other side of the equation, you won't be one of these statistics. You will actually be one of those financial mutants that does build to a life of financial abundance.
So guys, we love on you. We give away tons of free advice. We have tons of free resources out there at moneyguy.com/resources. Go make use of it, and then you're like, well, what's the catch? How are you guys doing this? We want you. I invite you. Go take advantage of all the free stuff we're giving, all the content we're doing on YouTube, all the podcast data and content, as well as the resources. Learn, apply, grow, make the best version of yourself financially. And our hope is that you're going to reach a level of success that you say, you know what? I don't feel comfortable making these decisions anymore. This is getting too complex. I'm getting to a point where I just don't know what I don't know. And that's where the abundance cycle kicks in. You will remember who planted the seeds. And what I like is you hear about, no obligation to this. No, try it out. Use it before you have to buy it. We give that to you for years. I don't care if this takes years to create success. Just come, let us love on you, create that success. We know that the abundance cycle the engine's fired up, and it's going to continue to create results for all of us. It's a completely win-win situation. And we just thank you. Thank you for subscribing on YouTube. Thank you for all of you guys listening out there in the podcast world. And we're just going to keep creating content. I'm Brian, your host, Mr. Bo Hansen, Money Guy Team, out.